Hi, this is Tara Vossenkemper with the Holistic Health Key Summit, excuse me. And with me I have Pascale Batrick. Thank you, Pascale, for joining us. So,
Thank you.
so Pascale is a life coach and an international from the stage trainer known as the Rainmaker. She has been precipitating growth and success for all who work with her. Since 2005, she's been involved in personal, lifestyle, and education development fields and has traveled the world educating herself, researching her craft, and teaching hundreds of people from varying cultures and lifestyles using her unique training style. So, Pascale is energetic, she's inspiring, she's motivational, and she teaches people to become empowered transformers that they inherently are, the powerful changers of their own lives, which is super awesome. So, thank you for joining us. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think you've summed it up pretty well.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, good. Okay, so Pascale, my first question usually centers on well-being. So if you could just take a minute and speak to your own definition of well-being, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I used to work full-time as a personal trainer and nutrition coach, and I thought that that was what well-being was because I'd had my own health journey.
Yeah.
And what I realized along that way was that for myself and for my clients, that well-being really centered around what was happening inside. So what their thoughts were, how they felt about themselves, what was happening at home, work life, like the whole package. I find people who have that really strong sense of I am well actually have, not everything's perfect, but they have a sense of balance in all the areas of their life, rather than one thing is really, really strong, like they have a great job and they get paid really well, but they don't look after their body, or they don't get time to enjoy time with their family or something like that. So when there's that kind of imbalance, I find that affects the head space. And that in turn affects the heart space, because what they tell themselves is effectively what, affects their inner world and therefore their outer world. So now I define well-being as holistic as possible. I call it holistically wealthy. So when someone is holistically wealthy, then they are rich in all areas, and that they feel good about themselves. They acknowledge their virtues and the gems that they have within, and they use their gifts and talents to support and serve the people around them that are in their day-to-day lives. And I find that that's probably more critical than being in the gym every day, or even though exercise and nourishing the body is really high on values as well. But I find that more and more, certainly in the environment I'm in at the moment, the way people view themselves, how their self-esteem is, their self-worth, all of that's more critical to them feeling well and therefore in a state of well-being.
Does a lot of your work center on helping people to not just take on your definition period, but really adopt that sort of definition of well-being and thus like change their life through that definition?
Yeah, definitely. I think there is no set standard for any one person. We're all individuals, truly. And I find the same is true for the definition of success. I think people try to live up to other people's version of success, and therefore other people's version of what is well, what is balance, what is this. And it's never going to work, because you can never achieve what other people think is right for you. But what is right for you in your own mind, and what you're comfortable with, and what makes you feel free really is the way that you're going to feel successful each day, and the way you can feel well. Yeah.
I feel like you're speaking to something really important, because we are, I think it's maybe not inherent, but I think that we have turned into a society that, we say this is what health is, or this is what wellness is, or this is what X, fill in the blank is. And then, like you say, we try to live up to these expectations and standards of other people, but if they don't quite match where we are, then we get this sense of imbalance.
Well, and not only that, it brings a constant sense of dissatisfaction. And dissatisfaction is taking away from what really, say, my goal might be to, I don't know, have my own business and have a family and have those congruent with one another, and then have my spiritual life also in there, not compartmentalizing my life, but living wholly. And if I'm trying to live up to someone else's expectations, which I've certainly done in the past, I just felt dissatisfied. It was like I was trying to give so much of myself in order to meet the expectations that were placed upon me, and yet I never felt satisfied. And probably no one else was as well, because I was never meeting their expectations of what they deemed success, or me living a holistic life. And I find that that's really lacking in integrity, because I wasn't being integral to me and my goals and my highest values. And I found drilling it down to, well, really, what is success to me? What makes me feel like, if I were to leave this planet today, would I feel successful? Would I feel like I've left my legacy, or I've done my good deed, or whatever it is that I want to define as my feeling of success? Then I needed to know what my highest values were, and what made me feel like, yes, I've done what I'm here to do, at least to a small degree.
Yeah.
Because that small degree, nonetheless, is fine for right now.
Right.
So I always encourage people to think a little more outside the box, and think about, well, what are you here for? Because that's going to determine what makes you feel good, and what gifts and talents are inside of you, and what makes you feel successful day to day. Not just, well, in 10 years when I've got this, and this, I'm going to be successful. It's like, well, what if you get hit by a bus tomorrow?
Right.
Who wants to leave feeling that they haven't achieved what they're here to do just in this time, and again tomorrow? Obviously, with an ever-advancing, I suppose, growth and evolution of yourself. I just think that's critical. And I think actually to have that conversation with someone about legacy, not necessarily about, I'm going to leave an empire or that, but what is the thing that you're here to do? Because I really do believe that everyone is here to do something special, and it's just about exploring what that might be.
Do you ever find that, I know, just, talking with you and reading up on you and all that, I know that you work with, I would imagine that people have resistance around this, that it's always about the long-term what they're going to have, or long-term what the goal is. How do you, because I think what you're saying is amazing. Like, if you left the earth tomorrow, would you be successful? Would you consider yourself successful? Like, figuring out what it is for people that success means to them. How do you help people shift from that kind of long-term mindset to right now? Like, what are you doing right now?
Well, first it's to turn off the noise. And
it's a lot of noise.
Yeah, there's a lot of noise.
Yeah.
And I find that a lot of people don't even know that is the noise. It's just, when I ask about, well, what's your little voice tell you? What's going on there? What's coming up for you?
What
voice?
Do
you tell yourself when this happens? And they're like, huh?
Right, yes.
Yeah. Really? The one that's there every day.
All the time.
All the time.
Yep.
Doing, and it can be so insidious, just knocking these little cracks in the wall of your wellness.
Yep.
And I just think, become aware. First, become aware. And so I often start with the basics, really just bringing yourself to presence. And that could be through breathing, something as simple as breathing, or acknowledging all of the senses. What do you hear? What can you smell? What do you observe? What's in your line of sight right now? All of those things just to bring presence. And I tell you, that's quite challenging for people, because during the day, that's not something that they sit and go, wait a minute, let me just be present for a moment. What's going on for me, But I tell you, it really opens up your world when you can make that a regular practice.
Yeah.
I do it when I'm driving in the car. And funny enough, there's a lot of noise, a lot of traffic, a lot of, that could be really tense, someone cuts in front of you or whatever, and just going, you know what, I'm just going to be present with me right now, because I get to hang out with myself 24/7, and if I'm not enjoying that, if I'm not my best friend, if I'm not the person that I'm most in love with, if I don't acknowledge all of my things, if I don't get to know myself, when do I make time in my week where I get to know myself?
Right.
And even moments like that, sitting in the car going, you know what, just going to acknowledge my presence, the beauty around me. And believe me, it's sometimes hard to find the beauty around when you're living in a dust heap. I mean, I'm living in a post-quake scenario, and it's just it's really ugly, but there is beauty, and I think being present, looking around for something beautiful, it does something on a level that I can't comprehend. It's on a spiritual level that I don't know the effect of it. I just know that I feel good. So feeling good, there's got to be contributing to my well-being.
Yes, absolutely.
And the evolution of me getting to know myself on a deeper level as well, expanding my consciousness.
Yeah. So, real quick, can you speak to, because I think I think that most of our listeners are in the U.S., so they might not be aware of kind of the other global things going on. So, can you maybe say where you're from and what happened, and then I want to jump back to the self-love piece. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes, so I'm in Christchurch, New Zealand, way down south. So at the moment it's a really beautiful day, but it is winter, and I'm in advance of you for about, 15 hours or something like that.
Yeah, 7? So, I think just 7.
7 hours?
No, I don't know. That's all right. It's a while.
Time. And about just over 3 years ago now, 3.5 years ago, we had a series of earthquakes, 2 or 3 major ones that completely destroyed our central business district and a lot of the suburbs. So there's a 20-year plan to rebuild the city. And when I say rebuild the city, there actually is no city. There's no city. So I'm living, it looks like a war zone. I mean, there's dust everywhere, there's roadworks, it's bumpy. And for about 1.5 years, 2 years, we had aftershocks that would continue. So we're talking thousands of earthquakes over a period, like tens of thousands over a period of 2 or so years. And in a way, I mean, I'd just moved back to New Zealand. I was living in Japan at the time. I moved back and the earthquakes happened literally 3 weeks later.
Oh my gosh.
And to me, I was like, everyone else was saying, your bags are still packed, you still got your suitcase, why don't you just leave again?
Yeah.
And I had this deep sense of wanting to stay. I just wanted to stay and help somehow. I knew I had to be here. I'd been living abroad a long time, and I just thought, it's time for me to be in this place. And I just mucked in and observed what happened and figured I'd take each day as it came. And what I recognized was that people, being in a very conservative society, they just opened up. They talked to their neighbours a lot more. You'd find strangers on your doorstep digging up this silt that came from the earth and helping out and delivering food and things that, actually in a perfect world that would happen all the time. But this was in a place where people kept to themselves. And so to observe that was beautiful. And to look around and see, people would write heart-shaped poems and post them on broken fences and road cones and things like this. So we just noticed compassion arrived in Christchurch, and when I say now it's the tiresome wheel of when a thing's going to get done. People's houses waiting to be rebuilt. I mean, there's some places still with chemical toilets rather than actual services to their homes and things like that. You're kind of like, it's a long time to be in this place. And so what I'm dealing with here is people that are they're operating at a high level of adrenal fatigue. So the new normal is raised stress, so it's really high, and I think it really rocks people's world to kind of go, well, what now? What am I doing? When you've lost everything, and some people lost nothing. Some people had no effect whatever to their homes or their belongings or their jobs or whatever, and others lost absolutely everything.
Wow.
And every year when it's raining heavily, they'll get completely flooded as well. So they're living in broken homes that flood. And it's like, and it's those people that actually I'm finding are the most receptive to looking at what is this all about?
Right.
Why does this stuff happen? Because in little old New Zealand, I mean, New Zealand, if you've ever been here, it is paradise. It's the most beautiful place I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of the world. It's gorgeous, and the people are wonderful. And I just think that here people would become a little complacent and thought, that sort of stuff doesn't happen here. It's on the television in foreign lands. It doesn't happen here. And when something like that happens, it's it's a reassessment of all that is in your world, all that you know, and what is life about, and so I think on a psychological level and on a deeply emotional level, people want to connect. They wanted to reach out and connect with each other, and they wanted to explore, what have I got to offer? Why am I here? What can I give myself?
Right.
Actually, you know what? I'm not happy in my work. Maybe I can do something else. Or my relationship is strained. So what can I do to either leave it behind and move on, or to reconnect with my loved one? And, so all these sorts of things have come out of a tragic place, which I find perfect.
Yes.
Because that's where people will grow, and that's where the advancement happens. And although it's painful, all good things come out of pain. I mean, look in the animal kingdom, look at the plant kingdom. Everything comes out of struggle and brokenness. That's where growth happens. It's like same in the gym, you stress a muscle, it grows. It's the way of the world. And so I think spiritually and emotionally, people need to have some kind of crisis or resistance or dissatisfaction in order to shift energetically and physically out of that state. So I do think that, coming back to wellness, it's all connected. All of this stuff is connected. There is no segregation between all of these areas, because life is that way. It's a series of crises and victories and brokenness and growth. And I think that's if people can really become aware that that's the reality of things, and that everything happens for a reason, and that reason is there to serve me and you and everybody else, then and serve in a way that is advancing, not setting back.
Right.
Then thinking in that way, life becomes a little easier to deal with. And not just easier to deal with, but I think there's more to be gained, because if someone can observe their life and observe what happens to them, not as a passive observer, life happens to me,
right,
but that I create. Every day I create. I am a powerful creator. And my inner world is really going to affect how my outer world responds, or how I respond to my outer world.
So I'm curious. I know I said I wanted to go back to self-love, but I'm really interested actually in how, because I mean, what you're saying is, I think probably like unfathomable. Like the people of New Zealand that you would see it on the TV and like that's not going to happen to us. And now you're saying that it's been years of like there's no city left. Like there's literally no city. It's just looks like a war zone. Like it's rubble. I mean everything's basically gone. I can only imagine that your own growth in that. I'm curious how that like experience really, if it did, which I imagine it did, how that influenced the work that you did with people, and if that shifted your focus with people at all.
It absolutely did. The interesting experience as well was, for me, I came in and I felt very disassociated with what was happening, because I'd lived away for so long. And I moved back, and my family home fell down with me and my father in it.
Oh my gosh.
So it was kind of like, it's scary, but it's more, at the end, looking at the gratitude. Like, we were all really fine, and we just closed the door and went, well, that's it then. And what's interesting is, and we left literally with what clothes we had and out the door, thinking, well, we'll never return. And we bunked in with my brother and his wife and their 2 children at the time in this very, very small flat. So we were 7 people in this tiny flat. And it became really comical, actually, because in that space, you crammed in like the Brady Bunch, and it's like, how do we even manage this? And we were there for about a month or so, and then we found this other little flat, moved in there, and then another earthquake happened, and my brother's place caught fire in the quake. So they all moved in with us. So again, we're 7 people in a 2-room flat for like 3 more months. And we were just kind of like, seriously? Like, we're moving from house to house to house. And it just became a joke. It became like, well, we can only but laugh, because
what else can you do?
We're safe and sound, and, we're fine. But such is the way of the world. And I think for me, I mean, I was at a critical time of having just moved back to a market that I had not been in for 10 or 12 years. And just in a place that my heart longed to be here because this was my home, and it always will be. And what I noticed with my clients was that they thought they came for one aspect of healing, but actually they came to befriend somebody who they could trust, and to just be in a space where they knew they were supported, and to just be nurtured, almost like it's like everyone became children, that kind of fetal position, like, I just need some care.
Cradle me.
And I don't, cradle me. I don't know what to do, and I don't know how to deal with this, and I've never thought about it. And in terms of healing, there's been so much happen here, so many beautiful events and things where practitioners of all manner of services and alternative therapies and all sorts of things have all come together to support the healing of Christchurch. And that in itself is amazing. I mean, to observe that. And it's kind of like there's been more, you see the warriors and the leaders come up, you know, the staunch ones who with shovels, and they're ready to go and dig out anything and help build. And then you see the others who are like in the really fragile state, and both need support.
They
both
do.
Need support in different ways. And as a, you know, and working in life coaching and personal development, what I observed was that I actually also needed a support network around me, because I could compartmentalize what was other people's issues and what were my own, but it's also, you know, we're all fallible beings, and so to keep myself in check as well, I needed my support crew, and and I love them every day for what they show me, and they're really my mirrors, you know, to support me. So I've grown a lot in a very rapid amount, you know, of time, very short time, very quickly, and it's been amazing. And I really do feel that this had to happen for me and for the others that were experiencing this, because there were people who left to escape this after it happened and moved to Japan and then experienced the Fukushima tidal waves, you know, tsunami, and it's kind of like you've got to stand in the heat of your own self and front up to something. And I do feel that, and this might not be true for everyone, you know, the belief that what's happening out in nature and so on is affecting us and our growth, and we can actually co-create with nature. I do feel that there's, you know, a greater energy and connection going on there, universal connection, and I think that there's much for us to learn from what goes on in nature or with tragedy and, you know, what other people do in other parts of the world and such. I do think that there's a collective consciousness, and we can tap into that and really, you know, change things, because I'm seeing it here in front of my very eyes. So it's a journey.
Yeah, that is a journey. And, you know, thanks for sharing all that. That's that's a lot. That's a lot of weight, and I feel like, I don't know, like you're talking about it with grace and ease, and it seems like this is just part of my journey, part of the journey here. And but I'm sure I hope that I can even appreciate, and that other people are appreciating the weight of this too, the weight of this experience, and just of the growth that's come out of it, and of the influence that, you know, that your whole environment has had on you and your practice and the people you interact with and the whole community at large. So, yes, I do want to, can you tell us about, so this is kind of like way backtracking, but I'm curious, so the name Rainmaker, that name for you, that's a pretty specific name, so I'm curious if you can tell us the significance of it, and maybe, you know, what it means for you, because that's what your practice is. It's Rainmaker.
So Rainmaker came to me from a friend of mine, and a business coach actually, who he's this powerhouse of a guy, really energetic, and he just said to me one day, he was like, you know, you're like the Rainmaker. And I was like, what? Why? And he said, because you make people grow. You do something and people are attracted to you and they feel good in being in your presence for whatever reason. And I sat back and I thought about that and I was like, I'm a sunshine girl. I crave sunshine. I want to sit in the sun. I feel like I'm being energized like Superman when I'm sitting in the sunshine. And, I'm just like, that's my space. Water, greenery. And then I thought about it. I was like, you know what? In getting to know my own shadows, that is where my most critical growth has happened. In observing the tragic and the beauty side by side, and that they're part of a whole, that is where most growth happens. And I realized that without the rain and the darkness, there is no growth. So I kind of was getting, all right, I see that. The rain, here it is. It's, and it's this mystical kind of medicine man type thing of healing and bringing on rain and a lot can be washed away with the rain. There's a lot that can be just washed away and feel scrubbed up, shiny, and move on to a new day. So, yeah, that's where that came from.
Yeah, I like that name. I'm thinking, too, in St. Louis that we have a lot of pollen, a lot of, allergies, a lot of stuff floating around, and it's always nice whenever that's high, when the rains do come through, because then it's all kind of subdued, at least briefly, till it pops back up. But, yes, having the rain wash things away is nice. So,
yeah.
So let's get back to self-love, though, too. I know that you said, you need to be your own best friend, that you're with yourself 24/7, which is perfect. And I think that we tend to think of others as our best friends or our partners as, filling this void, or our parents or whoever. So what is the importance of being able to love yourself fully and being able to live your life from that place versus having other people do it?
Oh my goodness, this is like, so I could talk for days on this topic.
Nice, okay.
Just from my own experience, but oh my goodness. So I was always one of these people who just wanted to be liked. And from a young age, I was just obsessed with people and friends and keeping people together. And if I moved away, I made sure I wrote letters. And if my brother's friends moved away, I made sure they connected. I was like the hub. I connected people together. And I just wanted people to like me. And so I guess in a way, from a young age, I was this rescue martyr. I would do anything for others. And because I knew that then if they were happy, then surely that would be something that, not so much credited to me because I didn't really like the spotlight, but like I'm worthy of taking up space. I'm valued.
Yeah, absolutely, yep.
So, and I'm being useful and purposeful here. And unfortunately, that's not really balanced. Yes. I'm going to give everything out and not nourish myself at all. And I had I didn't dislike myself. I didn't at all. I actually did believe that I was living a life of integrity and that I was, acknowledging my gifts and that sort of thing. But over time, I realized that I wasn't at all, because my body reacted to me giving away all my energy to others and never to myself. So, when working whatever hours people wanted to work, for whatever money they dictated I was worth, for, organising events for people and staying up to wee hours of the morning and so on, I ended up in hospital with pneumonia. And I was healthy because, I exercised and I ate well, and people were kind of like, well, what's going on here? And that was a starting point for me in terms of me assessing, really, I'm only, at that time I was maybe 28, I think. And,
oh, wow.
And I was kind of like, this happens to people who are really ill or old, or, this is not a 28-year-old body's illness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should not be getting this. And so I remember lying in the hospital bed, and I had like all these doctors around me and a team of 8, and I was in isolation and tubes coming out of everywhere. And I just was like, is this it? I don't think this is it. I haven't done my thing. I don't even know what that is, but I need to find that out. And so I knew I wasn't going to die there, and I didn't, obviously. But it did make me kind of go, I've got to learn something from this. And the thing that I'm learning is that I'm really not living in a state of integrity. I need to shift out of that. And that took a lot of learning because I had to explore myself. And it didn't happen right away, you know, and then amongst that all the earthquakes happened and so on afterwards. And then I got to looking at my romantic life, which was a train wreck. Forever, people, a train wreck. Because I was so, I'm going to just love you and give you everything, and I was like, I became this person of only attracting in people who were emotionally and physically unavailable to me. Yeah, join the club, right? Join the club. Yeah. So, and what happened was I had this, I call it my 2-week ticking time bomb, and I write about this in a lot of detail in my book, so I'll have to share you when it comes out. But this 2-week ticking time bomb was that I would have someone come up and, you know, say, hey, look, I really want to go out with you, this sort of thing. And I would be so like, oh my gosh, you want to go out with me? You most amazing prince, you.
I'm not worthy.
You know, I'm not worthy. Yeah. And so I had an energy. I did have an energy because I had an amazing power to attract beautiful people into my life who were my friends. But I was a friend zoner. You know, this guy would come in and I'd be like, and I would just do whatever. I would be like, what can I do for you? I'll clean, I'll do this. I will love you so much that they literally on the 14th day, there was like something would happen. Either travel or they found God or they need to reassess things or like big issues, you know, big things that was like, yeah, I get it, you need to do that. How can I support you? And so then I became this like friend supporter of them, even though inside I'm crying the ugly cry, like
yes,
like gosh, you know, cut myself open. And this happened for like the longest time. I cannot even. It's almost embarrassing, and yet that is my apprenticeship, you know, because then I met a few years ago. I met a man who, in my head, I heard my voice, my inner voice that was the true voice say to me, he's your future. And I was like, yes, he is. So what I did not recognize was that he wasn't my long-term future. He was my immediate future. He was to teach me the biggest thing I needed to learn about self-love. And I have this, my highest value is freedom, and I seek to understand freedom in all its forms. And emotional freedom was something that I didn't really have, yet I had it in every other area. And when I say that, it was because I didn't have a sense of knowing myself deep down and what hurts I had in terms of my inner child. And because I buried her. You know, when
we all do.
When rejected in love, there's another brick to the wall, you know, and I just built this really solid cave for her, and I didn't know her at all. And that allowed me to be strong in my other areas, in my work life and friends and, you know, my spiritual awareness and so on. And I felt safe in that space. And when I went to acknowledge little Pascale inside, I was like, oh God, I don't want to go there. But because I was dating this man that really just held this mirror up and forced me to acknowledge myself. I mean, I discovered this deep-seated fear of abandonment. And understand me, I did not ever get abandoned. I was never really lost or abandoned.
Right.
But what happened was, I remember when I was 5 years old, and this is what's interesting about exploring your inner child and the deep, dark caverns of yourself, is there are things that come up that are almost insignificant at the time, but a seed can grow to a mighty oak.
It's like Jack and the Giant Beanstalk.
Exactly. And so when I was 5, my mother came to collect me from school, and I'd probably spent maybe 3 days at school so far. It was really early on in my education. And she came and picked me up, and I said, I'm going to go to Sarah's house. And she said, okay, and I saw her drive away, and then Sarah said, right, let's walk. And we walked for about 5 minutes, and then she said, I don't want you to come anymore. You're going to cry, aren't you? And I went, yes, because I was petrified. I didn't know what to do. So I ended up walking back down the hill, sitting on a rock outside the school gates, and crying, and just thinking, boo, you know, a 5-year-old thinks nothing but, well, now what? I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And someone came along, probably a teacher, and they walked me to my house, and it seemed to take forever because I didn't know my address.
Oh.
Check yourself. Teach your children their
Yes,
address.
yes.
But I didn't know my address, and he managed to get me home, and all I remember, and I know this is probably not the truth, but I remember my mother saying, "You're late for dinner." And I'm sure it was like she was freaking out, and, you know, there's a whole lot of stuff going on. But in my mind, I was just like, you know, I'm disappointed with my parents, and I was lost, and my friend didn't want me, and whatever. And over time, that became, people I love will leave me. Not in my 5-year-old's brain, but my mature brain, which really understood that, or planted that seed and then reinforced that belief over time, which is why I attracted in people that I could not ever have a committed relationship with, because it reinforced the belief that people I love will leave me, no matter how much love I heap on them, which actually is quite suffocating, you know. It's like needy, clingy kind of, it's not even if you don't intend it to be that way. Yeah. And so when my ex showed this to me in a way, just through his being himself, you know, a lot of this came up. And so what was really cool, and I'll speak to this a little later, is that I was learning about this art of nonviolent communication, of compassionate communication, which I teach. And in that moment, I got to recognize that I needed to have a relationship with myself first, and that whole it's not you, it's me. Actually, I get that now. It is me. It's always me. I'm the one that attracts and whatever, and I'm the one that needs to heal me first in order to enter into a relationship that is true, that is honest and open and really evolving, you know. And so what I experienced there was that despite the fact that I loved this person, we were not alive together. And we weren't alive because we weren't suited. We didn't help the other become the highest and best version of themselves. And I really believe that that's what a relationship's all about. It's two people that are whole and complete, that know all of their stuff and are willing to share those things. The relationship, which is the third entity, which is like a fledgling plant or a tiny child that needs nourishment and nurturing and care from both sides. We didn't have that. We didn't really have that journey. And so to me, I was like, I'm moving away, and I can't stay if I'm moving away, because I need to really get to know who I am. And so I spent about 2 months exploring my inner child. And if to the people listening today, if you've never done that, if you don't know how to access your inner child, here's a really simple exercise that I used, is to take your dominant hand, your non-dominant hand, and to write questions and answers to yourself. So using your dominant hand, that's your mature brain, that's your conscious brain. Your non-dominant hand is your subconscious, and that is where the answers and the wisdom will arise. So and a simple way to start is simply, what do you want? Or what do I want? Right in the first person, what do I want? And let your inner child answer. And your inner child will answer in a space of instant intuition. You know, whatever comes up is right. And it probably takes a few levels deep before getting to the real nitty-gritty. But I find that if people reach a block of not knowing what to ask, then just ask, why is that important? Or what next? Something that's kind of open, and just see what comes up. For me, when I did this exercise, I came up with, right at the base of everything, I have to leave him. And for me, that was interesting, because I didn't have, I have this kind of, I don't exit. You know, once I'm in, I'm committed. I don't exit. I don't not complete. You know, I am. That's how I am. And so, for me to leave was me exiting the relationship, which I had no intention of doing. And yet, what I observed was that actually we were on a break by his initiation. We were on a break, and so I was able to kind of justify my choice, because I wasn't actually leaving him. I just wasn't going to continue. I wasn't going to get back with him. So I was, you know, energetically, that was okay for me to kind of reconcile with my. And so we had this beautiful conversation where no blame was placed upon him. No pointing fingers, simply this is my experience and these are my needs and this is what I need to do for myself. And it's not a question of love. I did love you, I do love you, and I will always have the utmost gratitude for the freedom you've given me, and you'll never know the depth of that gratitude. But I need to acknowledge that I love myself more, and I have to be true to what's going on inside of me, because that's me being integral to myself. So to my truth, really. And so I mean, we're still friends. We had a great breakup. It wasn't really a break. It wasn't this fighting and animosity. It was really loving and compassionate. And I think that just allowed space for him to heal and for me to heal, because he was going through his own stuff. And then what was interesting was about 7 months later, I was giving a seminar on little voice, love languages and little inner child regression, this sort of thing, and explaining my story. And as I was expressing it, energetically I recognised that I was talking about a person that no longer existed, which is really coming back to that sense of, if you're working on something, which I find is really common for women, the I'm not enough to I am enough, when you reach that point, you might not recognise the shift, but I think that was the moment where I recognised fully that I am whole and complete in myself, and I am truly enough the way I am. I accept myself.
Yeah.
And completely, and with grace. And at that moment, I was just kind of like, I'm letting go of the story completely. And the very next day, I met my now fiance. And we met and we connected on a soul level. It was amazing. And by the end of that night, we knew this was it. And within the week, we were engaged. And we were getting married at the end of the year. And it was just like
that's
this
awesome.
It was like this amazing, and I feel like it was because of an opening. It was like, you know what, universe, I'm ready to accept who I am. And I had to spend that time building a relationship with myself, because I couldn't have taken that fear of abandonment and the way I reacted to things into a marriage. It just would never work. And I do think that there's a lot of, nowadays, with statistics the way that they are, there's a lot of placing blame on the other person, or on reasons, it's the children, or it's work, or it's this. It's not. It's you.
It's very personal, yeah.
It is. And getting to that realization and go, you know what, okay, if it is me, what can I do? What can I add to this experience? What can I add to myself? And what can I add to the relationship, which is that third entity? What can I do to nurture and nourish this little plant that's growing and that will continue to grow? Hopefully in the right direction.
Yes.
And I think that really just, if both parties are willing to do that, and I'm speaking to not just intimate relationships, but in business, work relationships, partnerships, friendships, parents and children, family members. I mean, relationships is all about really love. And even speaking about business relationships, it's still about love. I mean, I've had some business relationships based on love that ended tragically, and that we were able to reconcile purely because it's two people still.
Yes.
We're down to basics. It's not just paper and figures.
Numbers, right.
It's people. So everyone needs to really have that relationship with themselves and understand that in spending time with you, you really get to experience all of life, because the noise is shut off a little bit, and you get to have that inner peace. And inner peace is something that is a beautiful experience if you can venture there. It does take some courage, I think, for people to want to front up to who they are, because there's so many layers of nonsense, so many layers of seeds we've planted ourselves, and what people say to us, and things we've told. Well, that must mean this or that. We are meaning-making machines. It's brilliant. We have an amazing organ up here that can really attach any meaning to anything, and I think it starts very, very young, and unless we as a species can learn that this is common, and our children get to understand that they can actually choose how they associate meaning to things, and really not make one comment mean, well, I must be whatever it is to attach to make the their self-esteem drop, then I think actually we'll experience more loving lives and more expansive, with this awareness. It's all related.
You're talking about inner child stuff is just, that can be so powerful and hard work to do. What other ways did you work with it? So I know you said dominant hand, non-dominant hand, and I'm curious how else you kind of forge this relationship with yourself and with this inner child part of you.
There was one thing I did that when I tell people they think it's a little funny, but I think it's great. I needed a totem, a physical totem that represented my inner child. Some people like to use a photograph of themselves, as a young age. 3 to 5 is probably a good age. And I instead went for a little fuzzy hedgehog that could fit in the palm of my hand like this, So I had this little toy, and it was funny because when I went shopping for him, the fuzzy toys at the moment, the fluffy toys, they were like ghouls and monsters and, these things. And just, he jumped out of all the toys that I was rummaging through, and I was kind of like, hedgehog, we'll see. He fit just here, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. And so I had this toy, and I decided for 7 days I was going to take him everywhere. And he sat in the car with me, sleep on my pillow. He was in my handbag at meetings. I mean, he was everywhere. And the reason I did that was I needed to have something physical that when I looked at him, I was remembering me and my child. And I would look at him and I'd say, I named him Hanky the Hedgehog. So, I love you, Hanky, and if I love you, that means I love me too, because you are me and I am you. And that was kind of this mantra I had. And so every day, and several moments throughout the day, I'm having this experience and recognizing that is me. So I have to nurture and care for you. And I would treat him like a little being, even though he's a cuddly toy. And what's interesting is he became so loved, so well loved, and even my nephews have similar toys, and we're kind of like this little family of hedgehogs. But what that did for me was it really did. It kind of brought me yes, I see you. I see you, little one, and thank you for the wisdom you have. And also, a lot of the time I find people are driving their car of life, but they're sitting in the passenger seat, and the inner child is driving the car. And this inner child can't see over the dash, and can't reach the pedals, and it's kind of like, ooh, crazy. It's like, well, actually, you're the one that should be in the driver's seat.
Yes.
And take your inner child along for the ride, and tell her or him that you are safe. I'm with you. Just buckle up. Let's go for an adventure. I can see. I've got you. You've got the little map there. Let's have a look together. We can make this, and that in itself kind of creates a relationship, and it's not about little inner voices on a crazy sense, I'm talking to my inner child. It's actually, no, speak to your heart, speak to your soul, speak to the one that knows everything, who's experienced it all, and all of someone once said to me, if you treat your inner child the way if you treated another child the way you treat your inner child, then that would be called child abuse. And I feel that is so true. You know, it's all too easy to beat ourselves up and think it's okay, and we wouldn't treat our best friend that way. We wouldn't treat a little baby that way. What makes it okay to treat ourselves in the way that is so common now? You know. So inner child. I mean, everyone has their own ways, but I find that simply what resonates with you, and what is the thing that makes you feel connected. Sometimes it is literally hanging out with kids. You know, I've got 6 nephews, all under age 6, and so hanging out with them it's a blast. It's a blast, and that does make me feel like, we should be laughing a lot more and experiencing that playfulness in life. Be outdoors in nature and go on swings and merry-go-rounds and things that are like childlike, not childish, childlike.
Yes.
Experience that playtime, and I think inside we all us grown-ups want to have a bit of fun, and want really feel nurtured, and that's why cuddles feel so good, no matter what the age. You know, we're raised on cuddles and big squishy hugs, and I think that's why we love it so much.
Yeah, I like that. So I like that a lot, actually. Yeah, the cuddle space especially, and the big squishy hugs, and yeah, being childlike. And that's not the same thing, like you said, as childish, but really like that love of life and that like curiosity and that joy that a lot of kids anyway, most kids I would say, just inherently kind of have, like this curiosity and like passion for living. You know, it's not sullied by other things. It's just who they are. So I have one more question, and you've already given us a few tools. Excuse me. So if you had to say a takeaway for the audience, basically. So what's one thing that you would recommend the audience do on a daily basis that would enhance their well-being?
This is a practice that I started myself about 2 years ago, and almost without fail, I do this every evening before I go to bed. So I get one of those little notebooks that kids get for school.
Yes.
And I have a whole stack of them, and I take one out, and in the back I'll write my successes for the day. So this is taking back to why I feel successful every day. So something that I've done that makes me feel successful, and even if it's just I made someone smile, or I felt good, or I drank a really good healthy shake or something like that. Whatever it is, successes, gratitudes, whatever comes out, whatever gratitudes come up for the day, and my affirmations and goals. So these change, probably every few months or so. Sometimes day to day I'll put different things in there. But that's just to reaffirm what it is that I'm here to do and what I'm wanting to attract in. Because that also creates that feeling of abundance. So does actually the gratitudes. Feeling of what do I have in my life? I've actually got a lot, And I started this because I was looking around for beauty in a place of rubble, and it actually really brought so much life in, so much beautiful energy, and it takes a wee while to form a habit, but once it becomes a habit, then that's something that I hope people will find actually adds to their lives, because it's kind of like a bookend of the day. If you wake up and either do a meditation or prayer or just kind of like, hello universe, hi God, I'm ready to take on this awesome day, and end it with acknowledging what's happened, then to me in my mind I was like, you know what, if I went in my sleep, then I know I've done my things. And if it's not a writing down, I find writing down is much better, but if not that, then just to think, what's 3 successes I had today, and what are 3 things that I'm grateful for? What am I going to do tomorrow? And it helps to download stuff from the brain and just park it, and just it brings a lot more peace, and it brings a feeling of goodness. That I've done something today. So that's definitely a practice I recommend. I have a lot of clients that take that on, and they find it really helpful.
Yeah, especially at the end of the day too, because I have heard about gratitude journals. Especially, I start mine in the morning, and now I'm thinking like end of the day, like that would be even more awesome, because then you're like kind of going through your day and you're ending it on a good note. And then even if I kept it in the morning, or did it both, but having that something like you said, like a meditation or a prayer, just a few minutes of deep breathing, in the morning to kind of wake up and be present in the day. Yeah. Awesome. So thank you, Pascale, for joining us. And I think you have something for the audience, if you would care to speak to that for just a minute.
Yes,
that'd be nice. Thank you.
Thank you for the experience. So basically, if anyone is interested and wants to explore anything, any dissatisfaction in their life, then I'm happy to offer a free session. So I do operate virtually, so it doesn't matter where in the world you are, and simply go to my website, and I'm sure you'll have the link there, and just put your name in the box there, and I'll send you a voucher for that. And you can gift it to someone else if you think there's someone else.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah, who needs a bit of something. And the other thing is, I'm having a seminar, a 2-day seminar called Make Love Every Day, which is going to explore this compassionate communication and just kind of adding more love into relationships and so on. And it's not for necessarily for people who are in intimate relationships. It's for also singles who want to find that person and deal with what's going on inside. And because a lot of your people are in overseas, I'm going to offer a $1,000 off voucher. So simply email me and I will send that off, and you can come and join our loving party. It's going to be awesome.
Oh, nice.
That's in November, so
Awesome. So thank you so much again for joining us and for your generous gifts. That's very nice. And is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap things up?
I just think the more things that happen like this, Tara, thank you so much. This is the stuff that is juicy and it gets people thinking.
Yes.
And if more people can share this around, I think it's going to just bring a little more awareness to people. So, that's I want to make as positive an impact on as many people as possible for as long as possible, as I can. So, just share the wealth, really.
Yes. Yeah, share the wealth. Yes. Awesome. So thank you again so much. It's been a real pleasure on this end, and I'm sure for the audience too. And for everyone else, I'm Tara Vossenkemper. This is the Holistic Health Key Summit, and I will see you all in the next interview. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.